Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. The pubs have opened back in the UK, but we're still in our homes. You can't go inside the pubs yet. Christopher Hamill and Patrick Van Straten join me. Have either of you been to a pub yet and suckled on the beer teat of a tap?
No, not yet. But when I was filming UCL review, my girlfriend did come in drunk last night, and my cousin was like, "There's some crashing going on in the background. Are you like being burgled?" And I was like, "No, the pubs are just back open. Here we go. Hopefully that'll be me this weekend." What about you?
I've been to a restaurant, so I was able to have a pulled pint, but I haven't actually been to a pub. Pato, have you been out yet?
No, but on Saturday I'll be going to like a nice beer terrace on the river. So I wasn't actually thinking about getting drunk because like I have alcohol in the house, but now you're turning me around. Maybe I do want to crash around the house drunkenly a little bit. I haven't done that for a while.
Yeah, 100%. I'm all over that this weekend. Let's crack on with the show, though. And there was a lot of questions sent in this weekend. One's from this one from Rachel. Which manager can you see leaving their club? We had Dominic say, what do mid-table clubs 8th to 14th need to do to become European-level challenging clubs? So we thought we'd merge it all into one super question, effectively, and do, if each club could only do one thing this summer, what would it be and why? And we're also going to make it a little bit more interesting, Hamill. Do you want to explain how this is going to work?
Yeah, so I stuck a tweet out yesterday, didn't I, asking people for 1 point and 1 point only as to what their club, Premier League club, should prioritise this summer. I've stuck one down for each team, and we're going to rattle through them to see whether we agree or disagree, Joseph. So, a much more fan-centric episode than usual.
Yes. Yeah, but I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to this.
Too.
It's almost like a throwback to the hot takes days, this one. Let's start straight away then with Arsenal. This was sent in by Jack Darby 16. And he says the most important thing Arsenal need to do this summer is sell Aubameyang. And I think that's a horrible take from Jack. I think now you've locked yourselves in, Pato. You've just got to enjoy the ride. Surely you don't sell him now.
Well, it's not a horrible take in the sense that if it were possible for decent money, it would be fantastic. But it's fantastic in another sense, as in it relates to fantasy. Like, it's never going to happen.
Good from you.
And actually, since Christmas, which is when Arsenal went to the 4-2-3-1 and started getting 2 out of Ødegaard, Saka and Smith Rowe, Aubameyang's numbers have got a lot better. So in a way, Aubameyang he's not the biggest issue facing us. And anyway, saying Arsenal need to sell him this summer is like saying Arsenal need to sign Kevin De Bruyne. Like, yeah, that would be great, but like it's not going to happen. Like, so the real question has to be what's the most important thing Arsenal can feasibly do to be better next year? And to me, it's probably add a creative left winger who can also score goals. Like, I mean, the thing is, all the conversation about Aubameyang and Lacazette is so stupid. Whenever anybody's getting locked into that debate, I just think they're an idiot. Because Arsenal's problem is not that they have Aubameyang and Lacazette and one might have missed X or Y chances. The problem is that those are the only 2 players in Arsenal's squad who score goals consistently. The problem is right now they've got a bunch of guys who are sort of midfieldy types and a bunch of guys who are forward types. And if they could find somebody pretty much of the Alexis Sanchez mold, who is like an extremely high volume passer and creator and a high volume shooter and scorer, that would be the best case scenario for them.
Yeah. What about Memphis Depay? He's obviously contract situations all over the gaff this coming summer, and I know he's got injury problems, but still a high volume contributor.
Yeah, he's exactly the right type of player, but I just think he'll have better offers than Arsenal. That's the thing. I mean, like, if Arsenal signed him this summer, that'd be absolutely fine. I mean, but if we want to go back to the question, the idea of selling Aubameyang, a much more important thing would be not giving Lacazette a new contract. Like, Lacazette, I think, has been very good this season. He's certainly been better than Aubameyang. I don't quite understand the hatred for him. But you cannot be giving another 29, 30-year-old another big contract. That's something Arsenal need to not do.
And listen to Pat, because last time he said don't give Aubameyang a contract, and he seems to have been proved right. So listen to Patrick, Arsenal. Let's do Villa then. This was Dan Merris. He says, most important thing for Villa is a couple new wingers or creative midfielders that can lighten the burden off Grealish if he's ever injured, or generally to carry more attacking threat. Hamill, thoughts on that one?
Well, they've already brought in Morgan Sanson, haven't they, as a sort of midfield reinforcement. And he is... or at least was at Marseille all action. Not been wholly impressive in his 3 starts at Aston Villa so far. His chance creation has been pretty much non-existent. But yeah, I think this is a fair take because their form has obviously nosedived without Jack Grealish. He is the only player in the squad creating over 2 chances per 90. And Ross Barkley's form since Jack Grealish got injured has also bottomed out, hasn't it? He was creating like over 3 chances a game. And then all of a sudden he loses his best pal on the pitch, who was obviously linking up with extremely well on that left, with him playing as sort of a number 10 or a number 8. His numbers have almost halved in that sense. Maybe they could get a little bit more joy out of the right wing because they tended to deploy Bertrand Traore out there, or maybe El Ghazi, who El Ghazi's puts in a shift, doesn't he? And Bertrand Traore's had purple patches this season where he's looked okay, but I still think he's a pretty easy player to upgrade in that regard. What about you boys?
I think the most important thing for Villa is not selling Grealish, and I don't think they will this summer because I think the COVID marketplace will be such that no £100 million players will move probably. But like when these sort of last 5 weeks where they haven't had Grealish, it's like a stark old difference, isn't it? And I think if not selling Grealish, I also think not selling Konsa could be a big one. I don't think they will again because they'll probably just reject bids, but just got to keep those 2 before you even think about signing like Grealish's partners.
I'll tell you what has been encouraging though, Tomlinson. Ollie Watkins obviously scoring 2 in his last 2 in the absence of Jack Grealish. Like he seems to have stepped his game up as an all-round forward. He's so busy across that forward line, isn't he? Leads the side for shots. Like is deceptively strong in the air as well. I think he wins 4 aerial duels a game. So I think they can maybe lean a little bit more on him next season and expect a certain amount of improvement. Like he's already kind of took off to a certain degree. But yeah, easy to upgrade guys like Trezeguet, potentially Traore and El Ghazi. So I think they could maybe shop for a winger.
Yeah, all right. So Villa, we're saying potentially another creator, another winger. Let's do Brighton next. We're doing this in alphabetical order if you haven't guessed already. This is from Ryan Adset, I think it's probably pronounced. He says the most important thing Brighton need to do this summer is buy a consistent goal scorer. Easier said than done, Ryan. But yeah, he's probably right. I think more so a consistent finisher. But like Neil Maupay, I do like Neil Maupay, but I just don't know whether he's ever going to be the 20 goal a season striker that maybe he was once billed to be.
Yeah, I mean, if he could score 20 goals a season, he wouldn't be at Brighton, would he? And like you said, this is easier said than done because you need to find a 10 to 15 goal striker who doesn't want to go to a top 8, top 10 club, or who isn't being scouted by them.
Exactly. Like it's not easy to go and get Ivan Toney. Like the Ollie Watkins, do you know what I mean? The Ollie Watkins deal has probably pushed those kind of transfers a level above Brighton. And look at some of the other teams that have tried to sign forwards and it's just stunk the place out over the last 18 months. So I think this is a really tough position to sign. Pat, do you even think they need to sign a striker? I remember we've had this conversation in the past that maybe you think that they'll start performing a little bit better next year eventually.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Like, if Maupay continues to put up underlying numbers at this rate, but doesn't start scoring, that'll be something we haven't really seen before. Like, except maybe in Christian Benteke, and even he didn't do it forever. If you get chances again and again and again, you will score. And the fact that Maupay, I think he's got like 11 expected goals this season, that suggests that actually, like, if he had his finishing boots on, he could be a 15 goal a season striker. I mean, on the other hand, when I think about Brighton's squad, I don't think there are that many huge areas of need. Like, I mean, obviously, when you're that sort of team, you can always like improve the squad a bit and add a bit more depth. But I don't think there's like some gaping gap in their team. So with that in mind, if they want to go and spend their money on like a goal-scoring wide player, then that would be a perfectly sensible thing to do. And look, while I think Danny Welbeck's actually been pretty good this season in limited minutes, and to be honest, everyone who plays in attacking midfield / the front line for Brighton puts up numbers. I do think that replacing Welbeck is going to be an important thing. So if you can get somebody there who's one of those hybrid players who can play wide, can play up front, then that would be a way to address this issue but also maybe not to just like drop Mopé to the bench, which I think would be it'd be a fantastically stupid thing to do.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Burnley then. Tougher one, this one. This was sent in by Huey. He says the most important thing Burnley need to do this summer is break their transfer record and spend more than 15 quid. And I think Sean Dyche probably has similar sort of views about that, doesn't he? He can't have another summer where he just brings in Dale Stephens. Like, it cannot happen because I feel like this season they've got pulled closer to the drop than in past seasons. And I know that they've always outperformed expected goals under Sean Dyche, but it feels like this season, without having Barnes and Wood quite such consistent goal scoring, without having Ben Mee for the first 3 months of the season to partner James Tarkowski, it came pretty close. So yeah, I totally agree. I think they probably need more midfield depth, to be totally honest with you. Just looking at their most used side now, you know, like, no offence to Ashley Westwood and Brownhill in there, I think they're upgradable areas. And I don't think they'd have to spend loads to be starting to upgrade some of these players, right?
Well, I think you're right in saying that they're getting sucked into a perpetual relegation scrap, aren't they? And it looked like just for a brief moment in time, they were going to sort of graduate that step. I mean, generating under 10 shots per 90 this season, conceding the third most, I think around 15. It is starting to look pretty ominous if they carry on operating the way that they are. But similar to what Brighton, they've got to be really on it, and with potentially recruiting from the Championship. Like, they can't see, you know, like maybe the Armstrongs this season slip through their fingers, or, you know, maybe Harry Wilson, who's had a great season on loan at Cardiff, would be a good addition to that side. Like, they can only shop in a very limited market, can't they? Because they don't have massive appeal, and of course any player they bring in has got to be really tailor-made for Sean Dyche's system. Maybe selling someone like Dwight McNeil for a large amount of money to bring in 2 or 3 other players might be a wise move here if they can't, you know, generate funds elsewhere. I don't know, it is a tough one, and I do sympathise, but they are, you know, still really boring, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Right, Chelsea then. This was sent in by Carefree Jack. He says the most important thing Chelsea need to do this summer is get a hold of Erling Haaland. I think there was about 12 clubs that would say that, Jack. And I don't think it's going to happen. I've put quite a few bets on with quite a few people this summer. I just don't believe there's going to be a £100 million transfer. I think Erling Haaland and his agent in particular are too smart to let him leave this summer. I think they're too smart to let him leave this summer. They're fully aware, as individuals and as Alf-Inge Haaland as a father as well, they will earn more money leaving next season if the buyout clause is met than this season. Because at £62 million buyout clause, you're going to have probably 10 times the amount of suitors that you are at £160 million, which means that clubs are just going to be giving agents and fathers and players huge wages and huge agent fees. So I just think they'll hold off for another year, even if it means one season out of the Champions League, to earn a £60-70 million agent fee they wouldn't take this summer.
Do you think that changes if they don't get Champions League football? Because, of course, they're 5th at the moment, aren't they? And they've got a really tough run in.
No, I don't. I think that Dortmund will sell 1 star this summer, but I think it's far more likely to be Jadon Sancho. I think that Haaland's fee is going to be too big for clubs to pay this summer. I don't see £150 million being battered around in the transfer market post-COVID. I think that Man City will look at a Haaland and go, okay, look, he's available for 60 million next season. Can we win the Premier League without Haaland for one season before we get him for 60? Yeah, they probably can, or at least they can compete very, very hard for it. I just think the smart money is that Erling Haaland moves when his buyout clause becomes active, and Mino Raiola takes a huge amount of money into his pocket because of it.
I agree, that's very sensible, but you're going along with the theory there that all the big clubs are going to be sensible. It'll only take one of them to the bed and think we can get a steal on Haaland here if Chelsea and City are going to leave it until next year for that to set off a chain reaction, right?
But it's not a steal on Haaland, is it? It's astronomical fees we're talking. 150, 160 million, 600, 700,000 a week, 40 million
No,
pounds.
not a steal in terms of price, but just like, let's get him, or let's at least have a conversation with him before X, Y, and Z come in for him.
Everybody's definitely going to have a conversation with him, but
I can see
one
Barcelona
thing
paying
having-
that money, mate, this season.
You think
just
Barcelona?
because
You think Barcelona?
I mean, they haven't got money, have they? So it is a little bit of an outlandish shout, but I can see someone like that who needs to, claw some mileage back on their rivals. Yeah, making a stupid offer.
Yeah, personally, I think it's a little bit too far. I don't see it being Chelsea either. Although it is in a bit of an Abramovich swinging kind of move to do, isn't it? And what do you think, Pat?
I don't know if Haaland will move. I'm kind of inclined to agree with you. That it's so much money. We have no idea who actually has the money. Like we end up talking about this as if it's like a normal year.
Exactly.
Well, somebody might see an opportunity and be willing to overpay. It's like, well, we don't, but they might literally not have the money. So in a way, it doesn't. For some of these clubs, it's not going to matter if their rivals are going for a player and they think, oh God, we're going to miss out on Haaland. Like they can't do anything about it. They've got no money. To go back to the Chelsea question, I don't think that this is an important thing for Chelsea to do at all. Chelsea's attacking line is totally fine. Like, I mean, their striker options, they've got Werner, they've got Abraham, they've got Giroud, and they've got Havertz, who I think is probably gonna at some point turn into a sort of, 9.5, as Tuchel has said. To me, a better move for Chelsea would be finding who's going to be the defensive heart of their midfield for the next half decade minimum. Like, Conte has been really good over the back half of the season, but you've got to bear in mind that this season, football has just been played at a slower pace this year, which I think is one of the reasons that we're seeing so many old strikers doing so well. I think that God knows when that will go back to normal, but it will go back to normal at some point. And frankly, I still think that Jorginho should probably be sent back to Italy and upgraded on. So I think that, getting in a new midfielder for Chelsea is much more important than bolstering an already overstuffed attack.
Declan Rice, that guy?
Yeah, I think Declan Rice would be great for them. It's a lot of money, and you can probably do something better. Like, I mean, like if someone like Camavinga is available, like I think he's probably going to cost less, and he's younger, and he might well be a lot better. But Declan Rice certainly would be great for Chelsea. I think he'd be a really interesting signing for them. It's just that the money would be a bit like Harry Maguire-ish.
Yeah.
Rice is better than Maguire, but like the money is a little bit much.
Yeah, agreed. Right, let's move on to Crystal Palace then.
Jesus, we're still only in the C's.
I know, we need to fly through some of these. Stoica says Palace need to sell Zaha, invest in players that can run, and add support for Eze, Hamill.
Yeah, let's keep this short and sweet then. I think the big thing with Crystal Palace is who is going to be their next manager if this is to be Hodgson's last season. Obviously, Eddie Howe has been bandied about, but that would be a huge departure in terms of playing style, wouldn't it? So they'd have to overhaul that squad to an extent, and you would need to sell someone like Zaha to fund that. So not the worst rationale from Stoichkov, but I think they should probably stick closer stylistically to Hodgson in terms of a new manager. Valerian Ismail might be an outside shout at Barnsley. They obviously play a very direct, very physical type of football. So yeah, they need to change bit by bit, Crystal Palace, basically. Otherwise, I worry about them.
All right, let's do Everton then. Alpha Biggs, the most important thing Everton need to do this summer is to learn to move the ball faster. I can get on board with this. Having watched their recent one, who was it against? Was it against Brighton, I think? Yeah. And goodness gracious, were they dull in that one. 100% agree with this one, but I think the difficulty that they are gonna come up against now is like players that they've brought in, Hamez's, Allen's, Doucouré's and that, because they're not players that are going to improve with the side. They're players that are already at like a peak or above peak level. I think they need to start bringing in some more like 20 to 23-year-old players that can, while those guys phase out, also get a few more minutes, especially in that sort of attacking midfield role. Like, say they'd have brought in Eberici Eze, I think you'd be like, oh, at least they've got like an exciting player coming through there. Like, behind Dominic Calvert-Lewin, in that space between him and the centre-backs, I think is a bit of a void of like growth potential. I don't know whether you guys have any other thoughts about Everton.
No, I think you're right. Like learning to move the ball faster. Like, they would be able to move the ball faster if they had a better squad where people weren't overplayed and that hadn't been destroyed by injury. Like if they can get in some backup fullbacks and some midfielders, then you will see a bit more energy in the side. But as it is, the guys who've stayed fit have been few and far between, and those players have been overplayed. But when you're playing half your games with like 4 centre backs in your back line, you're not going to be a particularly dynamic side.
Yeah, all right. Fulham then. Scout Suchek says the most important thing Fulham need to do this summer is keep Scott Parker. That'll be in the Championship though, because then they are not staying in the Premier League from this position. Hamill, do you agree with that one, Parker in?
Yeah, I think he should probably stay. Obviously, we've seen the merit of that with Norwich this season, absolutely crushing the Championship. I think, and he's obviously good enough to get them out of it again. I think probably a more pressing issue will be replacing key personnel that are too good to play in the Championship, right? So I don't think Anguissa will follow them down, although I did say that about Ismail Assar with Watford, and he's done really well there. Maybe, Joachim Anderson won't want to make that move permanent if they do go down to the Championship. So it will be replacing these guys efficiently and quickly, won't it? And there's actually one guy at Motherwell I thought would be good for Fulham if someone like Anguissa left, and that is Alan Campbell. He might be worth a little scout for anyone with a vested interest in Scottish football. But yeah, I think it's probably replacing 2 or 3 players more so than a Parker conundrum, because I think he'll stay and they will let him stay, won't they? I don't think that's even on the cards.
Yeah. Leeds up next then. The most important thing Leeds need to do is keep Bielsa, says Alex Barton. 100% agree with this one, but I don't think Bielsa's going anywhere, is he? Like, I think that's a nailed on one. I think it's more important they keep Rafinha, because Bielsa's just not going to leave that dugout. Like, Rafinha is a player that can really elevate them to potentially being a top 8 side next year. I think it's a million miles off, and they'll definitely have offers. I don't think they'll sell, because a bit like some of the other players we've mentioned, I think in the COVID marketplace they can demand a pretty hefty fee, and I don't think anybody's going to pay hefty fees in this summer window. Any other thoughts on Leeds other than Rafinha?
You just never know with Bielsa though, do you, Pat?
Surely he doesn't go. Like, come on, he loves it, Leeds.
He's not irrational. Like he seems like a bit of a lunatic, but actually, like when he has left clubs or had fallings out, it's been for good reason, and it seems that Leeds know exactly what they've got in him. Like I think that seems like a good kind of match, and I think it will continue. But yeah, he's a perfect example of the guy who makes everyone in the team so much better.
Yeah, 100%, definitely. And I don't know the contractual situation surrounding Jack Harrison, but does he return to Man City this summer, or do they have an option to buy?
I don't know if it's an option or an obligation, but they can, I think, make it permanent for about 8 million, which is going to be a steal, isn't it?
They'll definitely be doing that. Yeah, they'll definitely be doing that. So get that sorted. Leicester City then. Montel says need a new right winger more than anything, since Perez is just not it. O'Brien's 31 and Under is not trusted by Brendan. Been heavily linked with Torgan Hazard and Tovan. Hamill, this is a bit more your expertise. Leicester City, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's starting to look like they need multiple replacements for that forward line, right? Jamie Vardy without a goal in around 18, 19 appeareces. Yeah. He does turn 35 midway through the next campaign, and it would be negligent not to go looking for a long-term replacement at this point. I don't know if Kelechi Iheanacho is that guy. Quite clearly, he's very comfortable playing in a 2. So I don't know if that is something that Leicester are going to adopt moving forward, because Brendan Rodgers has historically played a 4-2-3-1 pretty militantly. I suppose he did change a little bit. He did bend and flex for a little period at Liverpool, didn't he? And he has played a 3-4-3 in big games this season. So there is a bit more tactical fluidity there. But yeah, Harvey Barnes, mainstay on that left. I think a really ballsy move would be a 50 or 60 million pound bid for someone like Pedro Neto.
Oh, bloody hell.
Leicester can go after Tauvan, or they can go after Torgan Hazard, but these aren't. I haven't watched Torgan Hazard for a while. These aren't players who I think are going to help keep them in the top 4 if they do cement it in the first place. It's kind of shopping around. They're still like, can we squeeze a bit more value out of these guys? Torgan Hazard obviously a little bit younger than Tauvan, so different in that respect. But yeah, a statement signing would be someone like Neto.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a huge statement. I was going to say that Leicester should enter the battle for Jesse Lingard. I think he'd be a pretty good pick-up for that front line along with West Ham. But obviously, you're punching a little bit higher there with Pedro Neto. I just think Pedro Neto might be setting his goals a little bit higher than Leicester.
Again, that's where it kind of boils down to, like, if you've got Champions League to leverage against these signings, it does really help.
100%.
So maybe their transfer list, heavily dependent on whether they finish 4th or 5th, alternating between Jesse Lingard and Pedro Neto.
Yeah, Liverpool. This one is sent by Blan. He says the most important thing Liverpool need to do is buy a Champions League level centre back pair.
Well, I think they. The thing is, if Van Dijk and Gomez are fit, those guys are going to start. Like, Gomez is amazing. He just can't stay fit. And it looks like Kabak's going to be made permanent. And I think Kabak is probably a pretty sensible signing as well. I don't know. The thing about buying a Champions League level centre-back is it implies that this guy thinks Liverpool should be competing for the league and the Champions League next year. And I think that's an open question. Like, I'm not actually sure what Liverpool's plans are. Whether they see themselves as entering a rebuilding phase, whether they see themselves as still, like trying to run out this 11 and win trophies now. Like, I'm not quite sure. So I think it all depends on what happens with their forward line. I also think they need a backup right back. Like, obviously, it's hard to get that person, to be an understudy to Trent, but like Trent can't play every game. And sometimes it would be good to have a slightly more defensive option available to you, especially if that person could play on the right of a back three. And you could maybe, experiment with Trent in another position. But, I mean, that would be a totally fine thing to do. But I also think they've got to consider how they're going to progress that attack.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree. That front three needs, I think, maybe time to move one of the three on and look to reinvest it. Because I just like watching Bobby Firmino recently. I just think Jota has to start like every game over him now. To be honest with you, I think Jota is just the future of that Liverpool front line, and another Jota, effectively, is what I'm saying, is the way to go. And then potentially selling one of those front three while you can. Man City then, Freddie says the most important thing Man City need to do is spend whatever it takes to get a tall Norwegian man that runs like he was developed and formed in a lab and scores 400 goals plus per calendar year at the Etihad Stadium. We've already spoken about Haaland, so let's not go into that again. But any other sort of things that you need to do this summer, do you think?
Do you not think they could use a midfielder? A proper central midfielder, not this bull of like, Bernardo Silva will play there. Like, I mean, Gundogan is in his 30s now, and then your options are Fernandinho and Rodri. Like, they could do with a central midfielder.
Yeah, I don't think it's massively. I feel like I look at the City squad and I'm just like, well, it doesn't need anything. Like, obviously Pep's always looking to evolve it, but it's just so good, that City squad. I know what you mean. Maybe one more body in the midfield.
And a left back.
They've got to sort that Benjamin Mendy situation out, haven't they? That's probably a decent shout. They've got to sort that Benjamin Mendy situation out. Surely this is the summer they cut their losses on Benjamin Mendy and then look to bring in another centre back. They're obviously going to get the money in for Angelino. That's going. I think if that hasn't already been made permanent by Leipzig, it definitely will. I think they had an option to buy it about 20 mil, did they, or something, 18 million or something like that, which seems like a snip now, but he's working in the wing-back system, isn't he? So, yeah, I agree. Left-back is a very good shout, maybe a centre-mid. But going back to Haaland, like we said, I'm just not sure it's going to happen. Gideon for Manchester United says the most important thing United need to do this summer is sort out Paul Pogba's future. Hamill, what do you think of that?
I was actually still thinking about Manchester City and Liverpool previously, and I've said this on a few episodes, haven't I, that I think Yuri Tielemans would be a pretty frightening prospect at either of those sides. And I wondered if they didn't make the Champions League, would it be worth Manchester City, sounding him out for a move? I know that he's pretty similar to, I guess, Fernandinho and Rodri, and that he's kind of a deep-lying playmaker at this point in his career. But I still think it'd be worth getting him in because he could essentially be a central midfielder for the next 7-8 years. Manchester United, there was loads of answers for this, mate. There was a lot of people saying DM, getting a DM in. Obviously, you had your own reply as well, where you highlighted 3 or 4 holes that kind of haven't been addressed in the last 18 months. So I guess it's sorting out a hierarchy of needs, isn't it? And would you put sorting out Paul Pogba's future above getting a new starting DM in? I thought that was the more interesting dynamic in this.
Well, I think they kind of go hand in hand. Like, I think Paul Pogba's future is effectively a bit of a chain reaction to a lot of positions. Because if he's sold, then United are going to get a fee that can be reinvested and will need to sign another body in the midfield. And if he's kept, then probably United won't sign another body in the midfield. But, like, yeah, it's important. I think the centre-back position's pretty vital for United to get sorted this summer. They've tried so many different times, haven't they? And sadly, Eric Bailly, as much of a talent as he is, just can't put together a string of games, can he, man? He's always injured, always got a problem off the pitch, or something's gone wrong for him. I think at the moment he's still stuck in the Ivory Coast with COVID-19 at the moment. He might have flown back recently, but fingers crossed he gets back. But yeah, I see where Gideon's coming from. I think Pogba is a bit of a chain reaction, but for me, centre-back, striker, probably the two first in keys, because obviously Cavani's going to leave. We all know Cavani's going to leave. I feel pretty sorry for the bloke. You know, he's not had the easiest time in England, coming over here, can't speak the language, doesn't know anyone, can't leave his house. Weather's been rubbish the whole time, so fair play to him for going back to South America.
He will never come back.
But it's a shame, because I really would like him to extend his deal. But yeah,
Sure.
Striker and centre-back for me. I don't know who that centre-back is. It's a limited market. And I'm wary about getting sucked into the Varane new contract at Real Madrid fiasco, which is inevitably going to end in him agreeing a new deal. So yeah, centre-back and striker for me. Let's move on though to Newcastle. Xavier Ronquillo says the most important thing NUFC need to do this summer is sack Bruce. Who wants to take this one on?
I feel like we did this last week, didn't we? A little bit on quick-fire questions, actually. And obviously Bruce is being made a sort of a whipping boy for the lack of vision at the club. But do you think just Ashley selling is surely more paramount, Pat, than Bruce getting sacked? And inevitably Ashley appointing another, sort of English manager in the same mould?
I mean, Ashley did spend quite a bit of money under Bruce. Like, he spent more money under Bruce than Benitez, which I think was a weird thing. Like, I mean, I do think he needs to get out of the club because, like, the fans hate him so much. But I'm not sure that he'll leave and whoever comes in is just going to pump cash in or will be allowed to pump cash in.
Yeah, but if you're, I suppose, the way I'm seeing it, if you've made your, willingness to sell that public, it does sort of feel like the end of an era, and they're just kind of trapped in purgatory, aren't they? Without a strong sense of direction. I think if that was communicated to the fans a little bit more, we're going to be this club. It might make things a little bit easier to digest. But at the moment, I just think the fans don't know what they are. They play like they don't quite know what they are either. And yeah, if he's gonna stick his oar in, even if he is spending money, but if he's gonna stick his oar in and bring in players like Joe Linton without really having a long hard think about how he's going to be incorporated into the side, I think it's just best for all parties that he goes, clearly.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if there's any bidders coming in for Alan Saint-Maximin. Like, he could be an interesting pickup for a Leicester, Hamill. Saint-Maximin. Like, I think Newcastle might try and run him up a little bit, is what I'll say, though. But I think his level is clearly above relegation threatened Newcastle at the moment. Sheffield United then. That's another one from Stoiker. Shout him out. He says Sheffield United must find an ambitious coach who will keep the likes of Berger and co in the club and get promoted again. Very easy to say. It's very, very easy to say. But in the Championship, they've just got to consolidate a little bit, haven't they? Because there's some of the players they've brought in, like, they're not being good enough for the Premier League. Ramsdale probably at the moment, Ryan Brewster, but they will do a good job, I think, in the Championship. Like, I think some of those players in that squad are very, very good Championship players. Like Jack O'Connell, when he's back fit, is going to be decent in there. Sander Berger's probably too good for the Championship. Ryan Brewster will be absolutely fine down there. Ollie McBurney scored goals down there. I don't think it's totally against the realms of possibility that Sheffield United bounce straight back up.
Yeah, but I mean, the question is whether they can get a manager as good as Wilder, and I take leave to doubt it. I mean, in a way, I feel like this suggestion is just kind of like, it's a tautology. It's just like...
What does that mean?
It means that you're presupposing the thing that you're trying to propose. It's a circular argument. So like,
okay.
But what we're saying here is what's the most important thing that could improve these sides? Whereas what Stoiker's talking about here is they should get promoted again. We're trying to work out what they should do to get promoted again. Obviously they do need to find a good coach, but I kind of worry about that just because I think Wilder was so good and did overachieve with these players, though I agree with you that I think a lot of them will look better in the Championship. Certainly Brewster has done that already, and so has McBurney. But I mean, they're going to need to... I think they're going to need to get younger as a squad so that if they do get promoted again, they can actually build. Because the problem is when they came up this last time, they had so much to do squad-wise that they were kind of in trouble. They were so reliant on, a loanee in goal, and they didn't really have anybody who was like a consistent scorer, and they didn't have enough money to turn over, 5 or 6 positions in the 11. So the solution there would be to kind of try and get some guys in who are good enough to get you promoted from the Championship now and are maybe good enough to turn into Premier League level players in the future. So kind of you want some guys who are like 22, 23 and are already good enough for a promotion race.
Do you think Sanderberg's going to stay, lads? Because I thought it was pretty cut and dry that he'd leave. Obviously, he was linked with Liverpool before he went to Sheffield United. He's very well thought of across the continent. But then he didn't play an awful lot of Premier League football after joining in that January. Of course, got injured in the December, didn't he? So I feel like he might be an afterthought in a lot of bigger teams' minds. I mean, we've spoke about Everton before, haven't we? Getting younger, getting more mobile. Like, that is the one thing that Sanderberg, that's where his numbers pop, right? Is ball progression. He's very good at travelling with the ball. So maybe they could invest in someone like him, but Sheffield United are going to want to see a return on investment. And if they're asking for 25, 30 million for Sanderberg, does a club really go balls in for him when he's been injured for 6 months? Like, it actually might just be that they convince him, you're going to rack up a lot of minutes in the Championship for us. And if we don't go up, you're still young enough for it to not affect your career.
Surely he's got a relegation clause in there. Like, surely when Sanderberg agreed to join Sheffield
but someone's
United,
got to be around to pay it, right?
Yeah, but I do think there'll be Premier League sides that are pretty interested in Sanderberg, like in that lower middle end.
Just tapping into what you boys were saying earlier as well. Like, I was reading a article with Mino Raiola and Jonathan Barnett on the Athletic, and they were saying that they're confident a lot of big deals are going to be done, but like middling
they would say
deals.
That, wouldn't they? They would say
yeah,
that.
Of course. There's a lot of self-interest there, but as in, like, they don't think it's going to affect the super rich, this transfer market, but middling teams are just not going to do any business. And I wonder if that is actually going to keep him at Sheffield United.
It'd be an interesting one to keep your eye on. Southampton, moving them on. Tom Ricey says Southampton need more players. Literally no depth. 100%. This is, I mean, I'm looking at the squad now. It is wafer thin. It is not a particularly pretty picture at Southampton right now. And I think it's going to get even uglier because I think Danny Ings is off. I think they're going to have to sell Danny Ings this summer. And you know what? Leicester could do a lot worse than picking up Danny Ings as a replacement for Jamie Vardy, just at least for another 3 years or whatever. And I know he does have injury problems, but if they can balance Vardy and Ings' minutes, I think that's a pretty smart move if they can get him for like 20 mil.
I think depth is a really misleading word here. Like, depth is not the problem. Southampton's squad is terrible. Yeah, exactly. Their 11 is terrible. Like, it's not like they've got a great 11 and a terrible bench. They've got a terrible 11 and a terrible bench. Like, so, yeah, they just need quality all over the field. But yeah, Southampton are actually... I think Southampton are really not that far off the... They're not in the same situation as a Burnley, like they've got better players, but they are kind of in that talent drain situation where the squad is steadily getting worse and they're just being irresistibly drawn towards like the relegation battle, and at some point it will suck them down.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree, and I think that the investment's not going to come from that ownership bit all over the place behind the scenes at Southampton, isn't it? Let's do Tottenham then. The most important thing Spurs need to do this summer is keep Harry Kane, says Roshan K. Hamster, can they do it?
I had a question for both of you because I'm obviously bored of talking about Jose Mourinho.
Go on.
So I thought I'd create a little hypothetical. Would you keep Jose Mourinho at Tottenham if it meant keeping Harry Kane?
Yeah, I saw people presenting this idea,
and here's me thinking I'm super original.
It's a difficult one because I think in reality that's probably one of the reasons Harry Kane wants out.
Isn't he like one of the most prominent supporters of Mourinho?
I don't know, is he? He's gone awful quiet recently. I'm not seeing him doing an awful lot of post-match interviews and stuff.
Sure, I know. I think he wants to leave because the team's doing badly. But supposedly, like, he's been one of Mourinho's biggest supporters behind the scenes because he thinks
Really?
Mourinho is quote unquote a winner.
I think I probably would, Hamill. I think it's that key to keep Kane. I think the issue that Kane's got, though, is the contract. He's put all of the power into Daniel Levy's hands. He's going nowhere, Harry Kane. He just can't get out now. He can't get out. Why on earth would Daniel Levy sell him? Even if Kane... Like, the only way Kane leaves Spurs is if he refuses to train, massive hissy fits, transfer requests, he starts throwing toys out the pram, I want out, I'm refusing to play, which he's not going to do. Like... there's no way Harry Kane isn't a Tottenham player at the start of next season.
I don't know, man. Like, I could see him putting those sort of moves in the summer. People said that about Rooney. They said that about Gerrard. Like,
And they both stayed.
yeah, but they still pulled hissy fit, still got new contracts, and still almost both left. I don't think it's that cut and dry with him. If they perform badly at the end of the season.
So if let's say they lose that League Cup final, Hamill, and they don't finish top 4, do you think Harry Kane leaves?
I think he definitely pushes for a move if that is the scenario. Of course, we're getting away from the hypothetical I created here. But yeah, because what is he, 27 now? 27, 28?
Yeah, 27.
Like, these are his peak years, and I think he's a smart enough guy to realise that. And the opportunity is gone to engineer a £150 million move. But he could probably still, maybe there's a sniff or an outside chance of a Manchester United move if Cavani isn't convinced to stay. I don't know. I don't know. It is tough. Pat, you didn't answer my question though. You don't think you've got away with it?
It depends. It depends how much money I'm getting offered, but I'd certainly consider selling Kane.
Wow.
Like because
brave.
yeah, but there's this idea of just like, oh well, you've got to keep these players. Like, what will you do if these players go? Well, but players don't last forever. You have to at some point think about what you're going to do if these players go. And
what is the fee you'd take, Pat?
For a team outside the country, I'd be, as it seems Spurs are willing to do, I'd consider talking at like 120. For a team in the country, I think you'd probably want substantially more, like 150 plus. But I think Kane is actually, I think he's an idiot. Like, I mean, he doesn't, I think he thinks his market is much better than it is. Like, his market is not that big. Like, it's the teams outside the Premier League are not interested. Real Madrid are not going to spend 100 million plus on Harry Kane. And if they're not going to do it, no other European club is going to. I don't see why PSG would do it. Like, it doesn't make sense to me
PSG are
at
too
all.
interested in locking down Mbappe and Neymar, aren't they?
Exactly.
I think they would give them the keys to the city ahead of signing anyone else, Mbappe and Neymar.
Is that your rationale for Real Madrid not going in there? Just to elaborate on it, because they want Mbappe. But say Mbappe does commit to PSG.
They'll surely go Haaland, won't they? Madrid
just
are
wait.
surely going to put all of their eggs in £60 million Haaland deal next summer.
Well, even
Next
this
summer,
summer,
okay.
like, I mean, if you tried to get Haaland out of Dortmund this summer, I still think he'd cost maybe the same as Harry Kane. And I'd much rather have Haaland. Like, I mean, Harry Kane's value is boosted by the fact that he's homegrown. And that's one of the reasons that Premier League sides like him. But nobody gives a about that on the continent. And is he better than Haaland? No. Like, so, I mean, it's just... I don't really understand why like a Real Madrid would go for him, but I think Harry Kane is still living in the fantasy world, where he's like 24 and every team in the world wants to sign him, and I just don't think that's the case anymore, no matter how good he's been this season.
It's an interesting one. I mean, I would love him at United, but I think we get priced out of a move. He's probably the perfect striker, isn't he, for that United side?
Probably.
I just don't think it's just priced out. Let's do West Brom then. Convince Big Sam to stay on next season, says Matt. Goodness, I think that's a bit of a spicy take.
No, I think that's really sensible.
Yeah, get him up. You think he brings them up?
Well, maybe, but I mean, like, they've been massively improved under Big Sam. Like, before Christmas, they were like a historically bad relegation side, and under Big Sam, they've just been like moderately bad relegation side. Like, which, given the talent in the squad, is pretty staggering. Like, I think that, keep Sam on. Why not?
What if Steve Bruce leaves Newcastle? Would you take him at either West Brom or Sheffield United?
No.
Over Big Sam. He's a prolific championship manager, though, isn't he?
Yeah, but Big Sam is a better manager than Steve Bruce.
For sure.
Like,
I think Sheffield United are going to be slightly smarter than that as well. I think they'll probably be looking something a bit more adventurous. I do think though West Brom do have some little gems in that squad.
Mate, Mateus Pereira for Leicester.
Yeah.
Another
Mateus
option on that right wing.
That's not bad. That's not a terrible shout at all. I think like obviously Conor Gallagher's on loan. Been very impressed by Conor Gallagher this season. But they won't have the luxury of those players in the Championship. I can't see Pereira doing another season in the Championship with them, man.
Because he's what, 24 now, 25.
Yeah,
He's established. Like he's performed in the Premier League. Yeah,
they should try and keep Diagne though. I think Diagne's been an alright little pickup for them.
Yeah, I agree.
I think he'd do pretty well in the Championship. Alright, West Ham next. The most important thing West Ham need to do this summer is back Moyes with the players he wants, says Scout Suchek. Yeah, it depends which players Moyes wants. To be fair, his recent track record hasn't been too bad, but historically can be a bit up and down, can't it? So I think keeping Lingard would be a good start for them.
I don't know about that. I'm not sure I'd do that.
You wouldn't keep Jesse?
I think that he's scoring at way above rate at the moment, way above expected goals, and I think that means that his price is going to be higher than you'd want to pay. On quality, you'd want to keep him, sure, but I think his price.
I think United will deal at like 25 mil.
I still think that's quite high. And I don't. I mean, like, sure, if they want to do that, like, I don't have an issue with them doing it if they've got the money. Like, that's totally fine. I think they could probably do with some centre backs, because Craig Dawson is very old and actually hasn't played as much as people think this season.
They've just made that move permanent.
Yeah, I know, but you can't rely on him forever. Like, you've got to get in. He hasn't played very much this season. People are acting like Craig Dawson's been an ever-present, and he has not been at all. So, yeah, I think they could probably do with some upgrades in other areas of the squad. But Lingard would be fine. I feel like they need a proper striker, do they not?
I feel like they need a proper striker. Like, ever since the sale of Haller to Ajax, they're linked a little bit with Tammy. And I just feel like that would be an outrageous move if they can pull that off.
Seb Haller, 13 goal involvements and 12 stars at Ajax.
Yeah, in the Eredivisie, though. In the Eredivisie.
Yeah, you say that, but I mean, it's still performing at the top end for the top side, isn't it?
They've just merged with the Belgian league.
He did it in Germany as well, though, to be fair.
Yeah, he played very well for Eintracht Frankfurt, and he was like more of a creator for Frankfurt. He's been pretty deadly in front of goal for Ajax. Like, backing managers has never been West Ham's downfall. It's just spending the money stupidly in an incoherent fashion, right?
Yeah, exactly. Do you actually think they could get Tammy Abraham? I feel like Chelsea might do a deal on Tammy this summer. I'm not sure he's in Tuchel's thoughts at all.
I think Tammy can aim higher.
Yeah, he's been left out of a lot of match day squads, haven't we? And if we're talking about Jamie Vardy replacements, I know stylistically they're not similar, but that's the sort of player that Leicester can't really not afford to at least bid for or show an interest in, because I think someone is going to get a steal with him if he is kind of forced out of the club.
Yeah, I totally agree. That'd be a great move for Leicester. Deary me. All right, let's finish with Wolves. Interestingly submitted by West Ham Online. An odd one. The most important thing Wolves need to do this summer is buy a good backup striker. Now, Willian Jose hasn't been that guy. I don't think he's scored a goal, has he, for Wolves yet, since he's arrived? No. Obviously, he had that one unfortunately chalked out. But it's so much easier said than done, signing a player who's going to sit on the bench, because when Raul Jimenez is back, like, he will start every game, and he's still the third top scorer for the squad this season. I think he's
and they've got a striker games. Like that. Like the problem.
Fabio Silva is that guy, isn't it?
Well, yeah. They spent a lot of money on Fabio Silva, and having Fabio Silva as a starter every week at his age is a bit of a problem. Having Fabio Silva coming off the bench at his age is perfectly good. Yeah. Like, I think if Jimenez comes back and he's fine, then Jimenez and Fabio Silva are a good pair of strikers for them to have.
Yeah, I agree. I think that like Sander Berge would be a great pickup for a Wolves, like coming out of the Championship, playing in midfield, like bit Dendonka vibes about that move. And the Adama Traore, I think, is potentially an area that could be upgraded. Like, I know that he does a very obvious role for Wolves on the counter attack, but like them picking up a player like Mateus Pereira, especially if there's rumours about Pedro Neto, I don't think could be the worst move, because there's a few areas of the squad that are aging a little bit. Like, they've got to eventually find a replacement for João Moutinho, and I know they think it's going to be Vitinha, probably, don't they? But Is he ready to start weekly in the Premier League? I don't know. Wolves is an interesting one, isn't it? It just feels like they'll be much better as soon as Raul Jimenez is just back on the pitch.
Agreed.
All right, should we wrap it up there? Should we do a personal question? We have been going for like 55 minutes.
Save him for next week then.
All right, let's save him for next week. So we're just going to do one extended Sunday vibes there. Patter, what did you speak about on the pod this week?
We did a little roundup on the pod. We talked a bit about the Champions League games. We talked a little bit about El Clasico and La Liga's title race, which has kind of exploded into life again. That was with Sam Obaseki and Henry Hill, so that was a good one.
There we go. Go and listen to that. Hamo, anything to point to?
Well, I mean, I think you plugged it a minute ago. Go and watch our FD explained on the formation of the Beneliga, because that's done exceptionally well, hasn't it? Over 100k last time I checked.
Yeah. Didn't mean to disrespect the Eredivisie quite that badly. But yeah, nevertheless, thanks very much for watching, everybody. We'll see you later. Bye.